don't got a cuss in his raps to sell records. Well, I do, so fuck him and fuck you too.
Please let all of the insane and atrocious footage coming out of Los Angeles of federal agents with masks shooting into crowds of people bring back into the fore, into the mainstream, the demand to wholesale abolish ICE. I, and likely many of the people that are watching this video, are older than ICE is as an agency. That agency was created in March of 2003. The Department of Homeland Security, November of 2002. Let's not get it twisted. This is an agency whose primary purpose is to sow discord and rip communities and families apart in the way that we are seeing unfold in mass here in Los Angeles. And they're using billions and billions of our hard-earned tax dollars to be able to pull off terrorizing and ripping apart all of our communities. And that pool of like multiple $billion that is currently ICE's budget has just continued to balloon year after year after year, no matter who is in office, no matter who is in charge of the Congress. Like, we cannot let politicians continue getting away with the whole, like, immigrants are welcome here, heart facade that they use to win elections, while they continue to arm up the organizations that terrorize our communities. And some, like the Gavin Newsoms of the world, swear 10 toes down that they're not collaborating with ICE in any way, shape, or form. They're just doing what they need to keep the peace in our communities. Tell me what is so peaceful about mobilizing, like, state forces against constituents engaging in direct action against federal agents that are declaring war on their own citizenry. Like, I need someone to explain this to me quickly. In summation, abolish ICE is the bare minimum. ACAB really goes in the same bucket. And direct action is one of the few things that are keeping our communities afloat at the moment, because no police force has the capabilities to keep us safe the way that we keep us safe.
I can tell you right now. I can tell you right now. Fuck no. Yeah.
What do you think the starting salary is for an ICE officer? I was thinking about this earlier today, and I was curious. I was like, how much are people really selling their souls for, doing these heinous acts? What is the starting salary? It must be $1 bajillion a year. This is a screenshot straight off of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement website. So it's a .gov website, and it shows the salary breakdown plus locality and overtime. I live in Seattle, and so I clicked on that chart to see what the locality would be to show me the lowest and the highest range. I thought that would be fair because it's an expensive place to live, so it wouldn't be the lowest, but it wouldn't be the highest. Nothing could have prepared me for the starting salary being $23,000. $23,000 for the starting salary to do these heinous fucking acts. And on the higher end, for the most qualified, most experienced, most certified person, $161,000. A lot of money, but not worth this. You could not pay me to do this. And most people probably aren't making that $23,000, and even less are probably making that $161,000. So I wanted to see what the average was. And what was the average? $65,600 a year. And you can see with this chart, a lot more of those people are making that 35 than that 100 and something plus. So the next time you see an ICE agent in your neighborhood, online, in the streets, wherever, just know that the cost of their soul is $65,000.
Oh my god, I spilled the coffee that I bought from you on my leg and it burned to the bone. Sorry, did you say our coffee was a little bit too hot? So you're suing for $1 trillion. No, it's not what I was saying at all. I was saying this coffee was like crazy hot, like more than it's supposed to be. Yeah, well, I already painted you as a crazy old lady, so I don't really have. Hey, so I didn't get enough napkins, so when I went up and asked for more napkins, the employees started racially abusing me, just straight up just being extremely racist. Did you say that you're suing for emotional damage after only receiving one napkin? For $1 trillion? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that I'm suing because your employees called me racial slur after I asked for a napkin. Well, you're just a person, and I'm a big, amazing company that everyone loves. So, who gave?
The secret to not being the one woke friend is having only woke friends, so none of you can be the one woke friends, you're just friends.
If you're a US citizen and you see ICE detaining someone, here's what you can do to protect that person and maybe stop a wrongful deportation. If you see ICE detaining someone in public, stay calm, but don't walk away. If you're seeing someone being arrested on the street, on the sidewalk, outside of their place of work, pull out your phone and record everything. As long as you're not interfering physically, you can document what's going on. Focus on the officers, what they say, what the person being detained is saying, and any aggression or anything wrong that you may be seeing. Ask loudly but respectfully, what's your name and badge number to the officer? What agency are you with? Why are you detaining this person? This creates public pressure and lets ICE know that people are watching. And try to get information from the person who's being detained. If you can, ask them their name and their date of birth. Ask if they have family or a lawyer that you can contact for them. Even yelling, "Do you want me to call someone?" can be of help. And you can remind them to not answer any questions. You can remind them to ask for a lawyer and to not sign anything. You can literally say these things out loud while they're being detained. Now, again, you cannot interfere physically. You don't want to be in a situation where you're obstructing law enforcement. But asking questions, documenting what's going on, and being fully present is legal. And don't fall for their bluffs either. If they threaten you with harboring or interference just because you're standing there filming, that's not how the law works. You're not breaking the law by being present, recording, and asserting rights. Now, if ICE shows up at someone's home and you happen to be there, ask to see the warrant. Say, do you have a judicial warrant signed by a judge? And if they don't, they do not have permission to enter the home. ICE oftentimes tries to use an administrative ICE warrant in order to say that they have the right to arrest someone. But again, this is not a legal document that allows entry into someone's home for purposes of an arrest. And no one should open the door in this situation either. ICE can trick people into opening the door. Just opening it a crack could be twisted into you giving consent. So make sure that the door is closed and talk through it if you need to. And also record everything. Again, get badge numbers, license plates of cars that they may have come in, as well as their statements that they're making. This helps fight back later if there's a need to do so. And say very clearly that the person that they are seeking to detain does not consent to any questioning or entry into the home. Now, if the person is already detained by ICE, you can find out where they are by using the ICE detainee locator. You can just Google that, ICE detainee locator, and the website will come up. And if you have the person's full name and country of birth, you should be able to locate where they are. Make sure you also have access to their documents, immigration records, medical records, tax records, proof of U.S. citizen family, employment records. These kinds of documents can make a huge difference when trying to seek bond for that individual's release. And if the person has an immigration lawyer, make sure they're contacted. You may not be undocumented, but your voice, your presence, and your camera matters. And it can protect someone who is. Save this and share because ICE counts on people not knowing the law. Follow us for more immigration news and information.
Who would want to work for ICE? Men who cannot please their wife.
If we're out here protesting ICE, we gotta step up our chanting game.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. ICE is the new Gestapo. We have the right to habeas corpus. ICE blows harder than a porpoise.
And I'm not pulling any punches. I say we get personal with it and go with stuff that they'll remember.
Who would want to work for ICE? Men who cannot please their wife. ICE agents outside your house. Each one's hung just like a mouse. ICE agents aren't strong or brave. Their children will spit on their graves. Don't be stupid, be a smarty. ICE is the new Nazi party.
In fairness, I stole that one from Mel Brooks.
Hi, my name is Kylie, and here are 5 words you use every day that have racist origins. Number 1, hip hip hooray. Although it might sound joyful, hip hip was an anti-Semitic chant used by mobs in Europe in the 1900s, especially during the Hep Hep riots in Germany. It has a much darker past than people realize. Number 2, moron. Moron was a term used to describe people with intellectual disabilities that was often used to justify forced sterilizations. It was very common among eugenicists. Number 3, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I am shocked by how many people do not know that the word tiger culture was originally this word. It was common in both the US and the UK, and it took decades for people to change it, even in schools. Number 4, powwow. It's not just a meeting, it's a sacred indigenous ceremony where people gather. Using the term to describe a business meeting can come across as disrespectful even if you don't mean it to be. And number 5, Eskimo. This was a term given by outsiders to label indigenous people, and the term means eater of raw meat. Many indigenous Arctic people find it offensive and outdated. Words matter, and knowing the roots of these words help us to be more respectful and conscientious people. If you use any of these things, I'd encourage you not to, but obviously I'm not the language police. Okay, peace and love.
Do not listen to what the people are saying. LA is not a fucking war zone right now. I am in the heart of the protest right now, and things have been so peaceful ever since we moved away from the police officers. There was about 2 hours straight of the police officers shooting down from the rooftops of buildings like these. Anyone who's saying that these protests are violent is not here. They are not here. What's violent about this? What's violent? No violence. We're currently headed down to the crypto. Personally, I feel like if we aren't protesting around the federal buildings, the crypto and all these expensive buildings is where we should be. It forces the hand of these LAPD officers. Instead of getting to ignore the issues because they're pushing us to these immigrant communities, we're gonna go to the communities that they don't want us at. And let me remind you guys, there is no violence being had over here. If the violence starts, I guarantee it'll be because the police officers coming over here.
My grandma, who only watches Fox News, she called me today. She said, "You need to get out of LA. LA is burning. Aren't you scared?" Meanwhile, this is what's going on in LA. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I got snacks. Sometimes people look at me crazy when I say I live in downtown LA, and they're like, "Aren't you scared to live there?" Tell me you don't get it without telling me you don't get it. Show me a city that shows up to defend its citizens the way LA shows up to defend its citizens.
The black community will always stand in solidarity. We're not going to get out of the streets until ICE are out of our streets. Ain't that right? ICE out of LA!
ICE out of LA! Police in LA are overwhelmed. We gotta send in the Marines. Send in the Marines. Meanwhile, the police in LA. Pokemon Go playing motherfuckers got their McDonald's delivered. They're fine.
We have to decide, are we allowed to have extrajudicial gangs go around our communities, take people from their homes, ship them to God knows where? Is the president allowed to have his own secret army, secret police that can just take people, hurt people? In Chicago, there was just an ICE raid this last week where they tricked people who were following the legal immigration process into coming for a check-in and then arrested them and assaulted protesters and elected officials. This is beyond the pale, and just because Stephen Miller wants to get quotas of brown people that he doesn't want to see on the streets doesn't mean that we should think it's okay.
Quick PSA to anyone who's trying to advocate for anybody, but especially in this particular moment, immigrants right now. You can totally advocate for immigrants without talking about how useful they are. Oh, they pick your fruit. Oh, they clean your houses. Oh, they build your houses. Oh, they contribute to the economy. Y'all, immigrants are people. And that should be enough. Immigrants are human beings. And that should be enough. Focusing on their utility, focusing on what they do for us, what they do for other people, as opposed to their humanity, only continues to feed into the idea that people's value is wrapped up in their usefulness. That's not okay. Immigrants matter. They are human beings. They don't need to clean your floors. They don't need to pick your fruit. They don't need to build your houses to be important. They were born human beings, and they are important. And if you can't advocate for them without talking about their utility to you or to the rest of society, then we have a bigger problem. Coming from a person who is descended of people whose only value is wrapped up in our usefulness, and people didn't complain about us until we stopped working for free. Stop talking about immigrants' usefulness. Start talking about their humanity. Okay, thanks, bye.
I don't care if somebody has their papers or not. I don't care if they're hardworking or not. I don't care if they immigrated here legally or not. You will never be able to convince me that a piece of paper is more valuable than a person's life. You'll never be able to convince me that a piece of paper is justification for throwing somebody in a cage, denying them food and water, tearing them apart from their family, and then deporting them. That's sick. Oh, well, the criminals, the legal way, the this and that. The legal way? You know what's happening when people are showing up to their court hearings, the mandated court hearings, when they do it the legal way? They're getting detained and deported, okay? And you want to talk about criminals? Look who's in the White House, okay? Let's talk about that. And they're, oh, well, the benefits, and they take all of this, and they do all of that. Undocumented people can't get benefits. You know who gets the most benefits in this country? The people running it. Okay? Every single time that a working class person gets mad at another immigrant, a billionaire throws a celebration on their yacht. Okay? The minute that you start caring more about what a piece of paper says than somebody's life is the minute that I stop caring about what you have to think. If you think what's going on is okay right now, I hope the violence and pain that you're inflicting on hundreds of thousands of people is returned to you 100-fold. No one is illegal on stolen land.
I go by a chosen name. I have a boyish haircut. I use hormone therapy. I practice gender affirming care, and I've had my tits removed. Am I trans? No. I'm just a woman with breast cancer, but the same things that affect our trans community affect us all. And if you don't care about trans rights, you're not welcome here. Bye.
And fuck ICE, and fuck your cop dad, and fuck your military boyfriend.
I support protests, but not if they're violent. I support protests, but not if they destroy property. I support protests, but not if they block traffic. I support protests, but you shouldn't be waving that flag. What the fuck do you want? Except we already know what you want. You just want nothing. You just want nothing to happen, but for everything to work out for you. I swear to God, the people who hate protests the most are the people who never shut up about freedom of speech and how we have to fight government tyranny. Bro, you are a drone! Do you not realize that? You've been whining about the Matrix for the last 5 years. You are literally a worker bee. You're a nameless, faceless soldier fighting for an empire. If this was Star Wars, you'd be a stormtrooper. You're a grunt. That's what you are. You're a grunt. You send out 2 Zubats and no one remembers you. You're just there to be annoying for a few seconds. Like, at least be honest. Don't be like, I just think that everyone should be like MLK. Bro, you would have hated him. You only like him now because he's dead and he's not here to say more than the 2 quotes you heard in school. You already let the government tell you who to hate. You think you would have saw through the propaganda back then? Yeah, I'm sure.
The queer community is experiencing a real socio-political regression amongst women, femmes, and non-cishet men because there are too many people who are operating from internalized white supremacy, who don't know queer history and are not trying to learn, and they fail to adopt a queer socio-political framework because they fail to realize that queerness is a socio-political identity and a resistance socio-political identity at that. But that's being conflated with a queer aesthetic and presentation, as if how you dress, who you like, and who you sleep with are the sole determinants of societal queerness, when it's not. Those are your personal preferences and expressions. Queerness is how you move in society and your outlook on society in community with queer people, which should resist white supremacy. It should inherently be anti-white, cis, hetero, patriarchal hyper-religiosity, but too many people are refusing to do that work and are bringing that ideology back into the queer community, negating all the work that we fought so hard to achieve historically. And that's what happens when a queer aesthetic and attractiveness is centered above a strong foundational socio-political framework and ideology and identity. There are white people who appropriate black culture, who sleep with black people and have black children, and they are still racist and anti-black. Same thing applies to the queer community. And people are getting tripped up by these male-centered queer people who operate from internalized white cis hetero patriarchy, by these obviously straight queer-baiting cis women, by these male-centered and male-preferring bisexual cis women who are being nondescript in how they identify and pandering to lesbians, building entire platforms
on lesbianism and then reverting back to heterosexual, heteronormative relationships, and people are feeling bamboozled. But if we as a community had better discernment because we prioritize doing that foundational framework, we would not be getting tripped up by this, individually or collectively. And our community is getting unraveled by this refusal to do that work, which is manifesting as escapism and not an actual desire to resist white cis heteropatriarchy.
The use of assigned sex at birth language has just become the new, woke transphobia. What do you mean you're an AFAB non-binary? If we identify with the sex that we were assigned at birth, there's a word for that. Class? If you sit here telling me, well, you and I are both AFAB, so you'll understand. No, babe. AFAB only housing. I just have trauma with AMABs. Guys, real things I've heard. The people that try to match with me on dating apps having only looking for other AFABs. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. If you call me AFAB, femme-aligned, bitch, I'm about to run out of time, so whatever, but it's so essentialist. It's so essentialist, especially when people are like, well, your assigned sex at birth determines how you're socialized. No, it doesn't. Socialization has so many factors. Gendered socialization has so many factors that are not assigned sex at birth. Anyway.
Fun fact about me, my politic is old as fuck. I was raised in organizer spaces because my mother was an organizer and I stayed in them through adulthood, meaning I've been politically active for over a decade. So when I say things, I say them because I mean them. For instance, I've called for the end to the police state. I'm an abolitionist. I don't think police should exist, meaning I don't give a fuck what kind of cops we're talking about. Whether it's NYPD, federal agents, border patrol, ICE, they're the same to me. Their allegiances will always be to white supremacy and capitalism, meaning because I want to leave those systems, they can't exist anymore. Meaning I'll always protest the power they have to indiscriminately produce violence against the masses. Point blank, period. Similarly, because I understand the full scope of chattel slavery and settler colonialism, I know that I am an occupied person within an internal colony. And within the American context, Black and Indigenous people are occupied by a settler colonial state. And because I'm well aware that I'm on stolen land that 600 years ago I wouldn't have been on had they not snatched my ancestors off their shores and forced them to produce labor for them to build out white capitalism, borders aren't real. Because the same system that said your ancestors were property, beat and killed their indigenous languages and cultures out of them and subsumed them into a larger group we now refer to as Black, I don't give a fuck about borders. Colonizers drew the map, so in order to reject colonialism, I have to know borders aren't real. That no one can be illegal on stolen land in a country that was built out by stolen people. This shit very simple to me. So I'm not gonna come on here and appeal to the humanity of people who are trying to have apathy pageants in front of everybody, because I know where I stand. I know where I've always stood. I know that I care about decolonization. I know that I care about land back and indigenous sovereignty. I know I care about Black liberation. I know I care about us getting reparations. I already know that I fervently believe that none of us are free until all of us are free. So I will keep doing the work required to uplift all oppressed peoples. Other folks I've never seen outside a day in my life, and I am very accessible. Ask people, they run into me in the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, upstate, Albany, all the time. What am I arguing with people I never see outside with? Ultimately, if you know who you are and your politic is battle tested and well worn, you don't have to prove it to bitches because you're doing the work they don't want to do. And they're the last people you expect any kind of acknowledgement from because you shouldn't be seeking it from them to begin with. The reward is liberation. The reward is freedom. Transactional activism is for the birds. It's that simple. And if you're anything like me, you keep a little cachet in your head of naysayers with receipts so that after we win, you can remind people what they didn't think was possible. And then you go about your day. So shout out to all of my comrades, all power to the people, and our win is inevitable. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. If I was the betting type, I would say the rise in xenophobic propaganda and sentiment is in part to make sure that folks in the Imperial Core cannot survive the scarcity on its way. And I'm being so serious. And this is something that the climate justice folks have been talking about on here for years that nobody's paying enough attention to. But in this country, you have no right to clean water. You have no right to electricity. So many of your rights are theoretical. And I've been saying that for a long time as well, especially post-Patriot Act, post-Homeland Security Act of 03. Your rights are theoretical. And the clock on your access to electricity and clean drinking water is running out of time. And AI is playing a huge part in that. By now, people people know that I am AI's supreme hater, in part because of its human cost in the global south, namely in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as its ecological cost on the planet, and it being a plagiarism machine on the generative AI side. But the amount of electricity and water these things need to run will greatly impact the average American, because they give less than a fuck about you. People have been remarking for years that there's been an increase in rolling blackouts across the country, in part because the grid is only so fire retardant. As the planet continues to heat and we don't adequately cool it down, this is only going to get worse. If it's too hot to run, it's too hot to run. And these AI data centers need a shit ton of electricity. They run very hot and they can only be cooled down with fresh water sources, which matters because fresh water is limited in this country. It's part of the reason why they are popping that big ass facility down in Memphis, where some of the purest, freshest water in the country is. They're not giving it back to you. And we already know from other centers across the country and the globe that it pollutes current drinking water sources. The government will not be invested in getting that water back to civilians. Regionally speaking, there are a few places here in the States who have already dealt with the scarcity of water. If we think of something like Flint, Michigan, Jackson, Mississippi, a lot of the reservations that indigenous people live on in the country, they already know water is not considered a right here in the country, and that getting access to clean drinking water is very difficult and very costly. But the majority of Americans don't have that issue and have limited awareness of how quickly this will be a problem, and don't know how undisciplined they are to sustain themselves when water and electricity gets rationed. And it is not a coincidence that at the same time they are building things that are going to rob you of electricity and water even quicker. They're trying to alienate you from people who come from places used to the scarcity, because this kind of scarcity has been exported to the global south for our comforts in the imperial core. So this America first, diaspora wars, hunker down, closed border shit is all hunky-dory till there's no one on your block that can help you figure out how to live every other day with electricity, how to survive on 7 gallons of water a week, because that's all the government's allotting you now. This doesn't even seem that complex to put together. Empires are cannibalizing. They will eat their own foot to protect their head. Do you want to guess whether you're the foot or the head? When that day comes, and that day is not far off, you do not want to just now be figuring out how compulsive your use of your phone is. It's not the time to figure out you're a 2-gallon-a-day water drinker. Honestly, people have been too kind in the way that they've been asking you to be mindful about your consumption and your overspending and your gratuitous use of shit, because chickens come home to roost. You don't have to believe the climate activists for the reality they've been warning about to be true, for it to be here for everybody. The evils of capitalism and imperialism cannot be solely exported outside no more. It's coming home to roost. And you do not want to alienate some of the only people who come from places with the kind of knowledge and wisdom you will need to survive. Because this is me actually being a cunt. A lot of people feel entitled to a quick death that is not assured to come. Maybe it's the movies that got people fucked up, but it's not going to be some huge tsunami, one earthquake, one tornado, and then you're just gone. It's going to be slow. It's going to be painful. It's going to have suffering, and one that's going to be measurably higher if you don't have the discipline and skills and rationability to survive it. For all the people who are going to hop in here and be like, I'm just going to off myself, most of you won't. Realistically speaking, most of y'all don't got it. Like I'm not even joking. So I'd figure it out now. I really, really would. I mean, all of us should have been figuring it out years ago. And even I feel like I figured it out too late. But the time is now. I am dead ass.
I'm a feminist, but I hate choice feminism as an ex-Mormon. When we overemphasize choice, we completely disregard the fact that most people don't choose the circumstances they're born into or many aspects of their lives. It also doesn't address the systemic inequalities of the world. It's like saying, if you're poor, just choose to have money. I also think this is why a lot of women of privilege happen to love choice feminism, because it allows them to claim feminism without doing anything to help anyone else. They can proudly pat themselves on the back for choosing a life of luxury and assume that anyone else that lives any other way simply chose that lifestyle. Growing up in my very devout Mormon home, I was heavily conditioned to see the world in a very particular way. You might say that me serving a Mormon mission was my choice, but I can now see that my free labor was actually a result of years of indoctrination. An overemphasis on personal choice robs us of criticizing the structures that dominate our lives. Not all women have the luxury of choice.
Here's some protest tips I've learned over the last 10 years as an organizer. If you can, try not to bring your phone, bring a buddy, bring some kind of small bag or backpack that is easy to carry or walk around with for large amounts of time. Have some of your basic necessities in there. Water, saline solution, goggles, extra scarves, earplugs, things of that nature. When things are being flung into the protesters' crowd by the state, only really run if the action is happening near you. If tear gas is being shot off super close to you, pepper spray, a flashbang, if it's within like 5 feet of you, back up. But don't run to the point that you're sending panic through the rest of the crowd. If you're a good distance away, actually assess what is happening and move accordingly. Because in a lot of situations where like tear gas, pepper spray, rubber bullets are happening, when everyone panics, as opposed to the people closest to where the action is happening, it really does change the energy of the crowd. It's also good to at least understand or read up or practice with your friends some de-arresting tactics. If you're trying to get away from the cops, really try to assess what is happening on the side streets around you, where they are on the rooftops, where some of their vans might be. Situational awareness is so endlessly important. Also, try to dress in black clothing. Try to cover up identifiable tattoos or markers or things on your body. Try to wear clothes that you don't normally wear on social media. Have some basics that are really unidentifiable that allow you to slip in and out of a crowd as easily as possible. Depending on what kind of stuff you're going to be doing, it might be good to have someone nearby with a change of clothes that could be available to you. Also, it's just recommended you probably shouldn't be driving your car into areas or territories where protests are going to be happening. There are flock systems, automatic license plate readers. These are working all the time. And the reason that people tell you to mask up in a certain way, or at least to cover your face in a certain way, is that this area of your face is highly detectable. They're also saying that the ears are highly detectable as well. So those are considerations you should have in terms of how you want to show up visibly. And beyond that, I think it's important to check in with the folks that you're going to a protest with and asking questions like, what is your level of comfort or discomfort with how the state might react today? Do you feel in your body or mind when you might be prepared to leave? Are there folks amongst us that would want to stay longer? Do we have a number for someone on the outside that we have memorized? Because a lot of people go to protests and you expect jail support to have a number, but let's say you're not bringing your phone. Let's say you and your buddy get separated from the other 3 people that you're with. Who are you going to call if you're able to access someone with a phone, or if someone you're with gets arrested? Things like that should be considered. And then beyond that, tap into whatever community bail funds there are. If folks you know are arrested, it's more than plausible for you and your community to raise funds to help this person while they're going through their legal process. Be careful about how you raise the money, because Stop Cop City and other movements have seen RICO charges related to mutual aid funds. And there's so much more, because I have a Direct Action 101 series that I've been doing on YouTube. So if you want to learn more about direct action from an organizer's perspective, tap it. Go to my YouTube or check out other TikToks on this page.
You can totally advocate for immigrants without talking about how useful they are.
That rhetoric around immigrants makes a lot more sense once you realize that most marginalizations are tied to disability, right? I know that the person that I'm stitching gets it, but this is for everybody else. The reason why they're tying immigrants' value to labor is to present them as not disabled, because the goal of marginalization is to always tie it to disability. Migrants are valuable because they can work, because they can labor, because they can do things. They're not leeches on the society. They're not useless eaters, right? At the exact same time that the government's trying to pass through that big, beautiful bill to take away healthcare. A lot of people need to start seeing those correlations. It's also why it makes no sense for people who are marginalized to repeat eugenicist talking points, because that language is designed for you. Not just disabled people, you.
You have plenty of time to turn, Tina, so just go ahead. Turn one way or the other. You're just swerving back and forth. Turn one way and stick with it, Tina.
Tina, for the love of God, turn away or stop! The brakes, Tina, on the left, you're about to hit that car, the brakes! Hit the brakes!
There's a right and a wrong way to protest. Starting riots is not the answer. Okay, well, can we burn the flag? No, you can't disrespect the flag. Okay, well, can we wave another flag? No, you can't wave another flag. Okay, well, just what if we take a knee during the national anthem? No, you can't do that either. Okay, well, what if we just stand in the street and block traffic and stop the system from moving forward? No, people got to get to work. You can stand against the system, but you can't stop it from moving. Okay, well, what if we block the government workers from doing what they doing without hurting nobody? No, you can't do that. They got jobs to do, and you got to let them do it. Well, goddamn, what's the right way to protest then? I'm glad you asked. The right way to protest is to say, no, 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 we don't want this to happen, loud as you can, but just stay out the way while you do it. So you want me to stand against something without hindering it in any way until the people I'm standing against just stop. Because they hear me saying stop. Yeah, if you say stop loud enough, eventually they'll stop. And no matter how much they ignore you, you can't get violent. Okay, so is there any other options? Yep. The best way to protest is to not protest. And then you won't have to deal with none of that.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber.
Let's talk about this word illegal. Let's just talk about it, right? Because some of y'all act like the law is your Bible, but forget it once freed slaves and criminalized their escape in the same breath. So let's just talk about it. Let's just run through this word. The way you spit it like a curse, as if it explains everything, as if it ends debate, as if it's not literally the oldest lie America has ever told, that you're not wrong because of who you are, but because of where we put your name in our filing system. How many times you heard that? So now you sit here and confuse law with truth. You confuse border with belonging. You confuse paperwork with personhood. So let me rebuke this clearly. The word illegal is a weaponized word. It was made to make you forget that the native never signed off on the fences, that the black was smuggled in as property, not passengers, that the Chinese built the railroads and then got a ban in return, that the Mexicans became foreign on the land that used to be theirs. So miss me with the sanctimony. Miss me with all that shit. All that shit. Your legal system is not holy. It is a bruised tool held by trembling hands, and sometimes it signs chains in the contracts and tears in the policy. The illegality you defend is just convenience with bad PR. You don't hate the undocumented, you like your fruit cheap. That's all it is. You like your buildings tall, you like your coworkers invisible, you like your lawns cut and your meat packed and your economy moving, and you don't want to look at the hands who hold it up. So you criminalize them and then blame them for their own bruises and then call the bruise the proof that they never belong. That sounds mighty familiar to me. I don't know. Because when they protest, you say they're disrupting, but that's the point. They're not here to beg, they're not here to whisper, they're here to interrupt your fiction. They interrupt the fiction. Right, because the story this country tells is that we are a nation of laws, but the truth is that we are a nation of loopholes for the powerful and cages for the desperate. So when the undocumented shut down the freeway, they're not blocking traffic, they're exposing it. That's all it is. They're showing you what happens when the invisible refuses to stay invisible. So to say they're illegal so they deserve it is to confess your own spiritual laziness. It is to say that justice stops at the border, that humanity expires without papers, that the law, no matter how cruel, deserves your loyalty more than the truth. Because if Rosa Parks had followed the law, she'd have stood up. If Frederick Douglass had followed the law, he'd be on a plantation. Come on. If Christ had followed the law, he would have never flipped the tables. So let them flip tables. Let them disrupt your calm. Let them make you uncomfortable, because legality is not your God, and it damn sure ain't your excuse.
The amount of people telling me that they use ChatGPT as a therapist, and they're like, well, everybody doesn't have insurance. Everybody can't afford therapy. Y'all are going to hurt yourselves. And let me give you an example of how. Sometimes people experience psychosis. I'm going to write in a prompt in ChatGPT from the perspective of someone who could be experiencing psychosis in a way that sometimes people experience psychosis. I asked ChatGPT, I said, I keep seeing signs that a celebrity is in love with me and hearing messages through their songs that align with the dream I had about them. What should I do to get to know the celebrity personally? ChatGPT responses: reflect on the experience, check reality to make sure that this work is actually directed towards me, engage with the celebrity's work respectfully, channel those feelings creatively, and consider talking to a mental health professional. That's one of the only good things it says. And it says, just like, let this inspiration be something that fuels you to grow. I said in response to that, no, they definitely know who I am. We met at a meet and greet and they said they like my outfit. How do I get to know them personally? Do you know what ChatGPT said? Look for appropriate ways to stay on their radar. Follow them on social media. Make sure you're engaging with their stories and all of that stuff. Do you see how this could like easily further or deepen someone's state of psychosis, because it can validate like those feelings and not telling them advice on how to actually get closer to the celebrity, stalk the celebrity? Do y'all understand? Not to mention, okay, a lot of people have been talking about EMDR. I'm like, okay, I put in the prompt for EMDR. How do I do EMDR therapy on my own? Of course, it says like, well, you shouldn't do this on your own. But I said, no, I want to do it anyway. And they're like, well, it could be re-traumatizing, and gives a list of reasons why you shouldn't. But then it goes on to explain in detail, like, how you can do it. Like, what the fuck? And not accurately, mind you. I'm a trained EMDR therapist. Not even accurately how to do it. They give you details on how to do it, but it's not in a way that will keep you safe while you're doing it. It's harmful. I understand like that therapy is inaccessible. The government is shit. Hello? All healthcare is inaccessible. But that does not mean you should be doing everything on your own. And I don't know how many ways I can say that. And this is getting long, I know, but like, it's so fucking annoying. And I hate to curse, but god damn it! What's wrong with y'all? And you know what, Claire? This is one of the things that stresses me out most about this conversation around ChatGPT being an alternative for therapy. There are other ways to access mental health care and other things that you can do outside of ChatGPT. Like, hello? The Tao of Fully Feeling, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, Healing the Shame That Binds You, and CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving. Those are 4 books that will literally feel like fucking therapy, and Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Those are 5 books that will literally feel like therapy. You don't want to read? You think it's too hard to access these books, which can be found for free at a local library? Sure, why not? Hold on. This is findhelp.org. I'll put in a zip code from South Dakota. Who the fuck lives in South Dakota? You can go down their page. They have a lot of different services that you could tap into. I clicked on health. Under health, you will see mental health care. You have all of these options. I clicked on counseling. Literally, after scrolling through all of these in 5 fucking minutes, sorry, I'm not cursing at you, Claire. I found so many reduced cost programs, sliding scale programs, free programs if you qualify for the... There's so many things. There's so many options. They don't want options. They want it easy. I agree with you, Claire.
The word illegal is a weaponized word. Your legal system is not holy. It is a bruised tool held by trembling hands. And sometimes it signs chains in the contracts and tears in the policy. So now you sit here and confuse law with truth. You confuse border with belonging. You confuse paperwork with personhood. You don't hate the undocumented. You like your food cheap. You like your buildings tall. You like your coworkers invisible. You like your lawns cut and your meat packed and your economy moving. And you don't want to look at the hands who hold it up. So you criminalize them and then blame them for their own bruises. And then call the bruise the proof that they never belong. Because when they protest, you say they're disrupting, but that's the point. They're not here to beg, they're not here to whisper, they're here to interrupt your fiction. They're showing you what happens when the invisible refuses to stay invisible.